Let's hit it. Let's hit the show. Yeah, come on, Proc. Feel the beat. I know you got what it takes. Proc, come on, Proc. Hit the rock. Hit the clock. Time's clock. Proc. Here we go. Feel the beat. Jesus Christ is risen. It's a positive resurrection. Jesus is risen. It's a propositive resurrection. Now he's here to stay, to give us a direction. At this damn moment, we're heading in the wrong direction. I don't know what we're gonna do. Exit with the Brexit or the EU. Oh, I know one of his disciples, Bojo, is in the firing line as one of Jesus' selection. At this damn time, at this damn moment in time, we're heading in the wrong direction. I don't know what we're going to do, exit with the Brexit or the EU. All I know, one of his disciples, Bojo, is in the firing line as one of his selection. So there's corroding on population growth in the UK is overloading. This minute in time, the whole damn world population growth in the UK is overloading. We need this Brexit to form a unity, to protect our community. I spit these lyrics with diva, but I'm a firm believer. We gotta be a real receiver. Send out meditations and podcasters visit all different nations. We need this Brexit to form a unity to protect our community. I spit these lyrics with diva, but I'm a firm believer. We gotta be a real achiever. Send out nations. You're all different nations. Every day we're praying so hard to battle these sporadic knife crime from happening all over the globe. I sit sometimes and think to myself, where's it all gotta stop? Sometimes in life, certain things you all gotta drop. What happened to parental responsibilities for these dumb juvenile kids with their own possibilities? All I know is we're heading in the wrong direction. Jesus knows he's gonna make us a selection. Come on, fuck, what's it gonna be? What happened to parents' responsibilities? These dumb juvenile kids, there's no possibilities. All I know is we're heading in the wrong direction. Jesus knows he's gonna make us a selection. I'm gonna sing hallelujah, amen. It's our time to shine and stop this sporadic knife crime. We're gonna put a bop to it. We're gonna sing a stop to it. We gotta put a stop to it. There's no forbearance for the parents to the dumbass kids playing Grand Theft Auto, smoking weed or Assassin's Creed. They don't know playing silly games ain't gonna earn no dough. Join the army, kid, and soon the world gonna blow. Our community, our country, our safety is paramount. Parliamentary sovereignty, the law is the laws divide above all judiciary in the UK. Laws divide, laws multiply. We raised you, God praised you. Now all you can do is sit here, living on welfare. Our community, our country is our safety, it is paramount. Parliamentary sovereignty is law divide above all other judiciary in the UK. Laws divide, laws multiply. We raised you, God praised you. Now all you can do is sit here, living on welfare. Amen.
One more song like this.
Here we go, Proc. It's a capital P. You know what it's gotta be. Here we go. The capital P in proclamation. Professor Johnson introducing you to inconspicuous. Here we go. You know I can sing it. You know I can wing it. H to the E to the R to the T. The FORD SHIRE. Hertfordshire. That's where it's at. We're straight talking. We're talking my pedigree. We've never been no anti-Semitism. Totally against terrorism. We need to stop this school to our community. At first I didn't know. I put a rhyme to this until I dialed 99 and put a crime to this. No, never been no anti-Semitism. Totally against terrorism. We need to stop this scrutiny to our community. At first I didn't know, I put a rhyme to this until I dial 999 and put a crime to this. Last year I would have stuck a fist to this, now I stick a gist to this. I'm like Justin as boy Martyr, it's legit, I just got smarter. After I didn't know, I could have. Last year I would have stick a fist to this, now I stick a gist to this. I'm like Justin as boy Martyr, it's legit, I just got smart. I remember when I used to get bullied in first grade about my speech impediment. Now my rhyme's right, my rhyme's tight. These girls say I'm unapproachable. They say I look like from Mauritius, looking all kinds of delicious. My real name is Justin, can clearly why the girls ain't trusting. These girls say I'm unapproachable. They say I look like I'm from Mauritius, looking all kinds of delicious. My real name's Justin, they can clearly see why the girls ain't trusting. They become inconspicuous. I'm an apologetic apologist. There's a reason I got no forbearance. I was born with no parents. I joined the Nigerian Christian Gospel Church like the white opposite version of Sister Mary Clarence. I joined the Gospel Church like a white opposite version of Sister Mary Clarence. Now I'm there every Sunday making an appearance. I'm also the convener facilitator, the Gospel illustrator, a full bank support worker, accumulator. The reason I got no forbearance, I was born with no parents. Enjoyed it. Here we go. You know what you got to do. You know what.
Ladies and gents, proclamation news and gatherance with the prodigious, the prominent Professor Johnson. Thank you all for actually coming in. My mate A. Chapman usually comes through and support the show. I'm not sure if he's about at the moment, but I just want to say thank you ever so much for coming and supporting the show. It's Friday. It is the end of the week. Absolute phenomenal. I mean, everyone's at a standstill still. International lockdown. We're going to look ahead of the restrictions. Coming to the restrictions in the forthcoming weeks. We're talking about we could be going to the fourth national lockdown also. So we know we're still up against it. We're not sure what's going on for the better of our well-being. At the minute, we've got about 650 listeners. I've got to do a little bit of advertising. Also, we've got to have a little bit of evaluation to what's ahead of us. What is ahead of us? We've got the elections in the 6th of May 2021. It's very, very important that you preach this to your children, because you're not only shaping up your future, you're shaping up your children's future as well, and it gives them a chance to vote. Everyone's allowed to voice their opinion, express or oppress their opinion. You shouldn't push your children into who they support. It should be down to the child, the individual, because we all have aspirations in life. It could be immediate parents, or it could be grandparents, or it could be anyone for whatever reason. It's not none of the wiser for us to point our children's direction in life. You can't make the child's decision. In some things you can. When it comes to politics and football teams as well, especially, no father should hate their child for supporting the opposite team, the opposing party. Is what I'm getting at. It's down to the child to have his opinions, express his opinions, because their future is bright. And if you smother it, you're going to detain their future like yours, like-minded like yours. It could be different, for mental reasons or disability reasons. They might want to do a different path for you. And I was a builder for the majority of my life, but no way on earth would I point my kids in that direction to go into building. Manual work can cause arthritis. I've got secondary Raynaud's disease. My altercations are totally different to someone else. But anyway, as we're moving forward, we're going to give you the rundown of the sponsor of Proclamation News and Gavins. Why do we do this 7 days a week? People are probably thinking, why are they doing this 7 days a week? O2 Guru devices, ladies and gents. O2 devices are the best network. 2 seconds. Just drop. That will not hopefully be happening again. O2 devices are the best mobile phone device with the best network coverage out all throughout the UK. It's absolute phenomenal. You can get O2 priorities as you sign up to O2 network. O2 should really be funding me for the hard work to do. So if O2 network is listening in, you need to start putting your finger out, because I am a loyal customer, very, very loyal customer with O2. I do need some backing of O2. I was sponsored at the start of my academic year at university. They started sponsoring me because I'm phenomenal. I'm quite motivational. I'm very emotive when it comes to like a talk show. I talk about politics. That's my academic integrity is arts and humanities. So when I become, very, very prodigious, the way I, keep it in with the aristocracy, social elite, so to speak, in a professional etiquette. Etiquette. I like to use the word etiquette for professional because that's exactly what it says on the tin. Very etiquette in style and sense. I like to reach. People come through and think, yeah, I've got to be respectful in his radio show, in his talk show. He is talking about righteousness. I'm talking about righteousness in any shape or form you hate politics. Righteousness because it's in our everyday needs. It's in your wife's needs. Every job you do in life is all about politics. I was a professional boxer for 5 years. It's all about putting bums on seats. And it's the guys in the know-how that are earning the money. It's not the guys that are in the ring getting their head punched in. You're not making a name for yourself getting your head punched in. It's the guys that are sitting there twiddling their fingers, whacking in the pound note. In different constituencies. Oh, we're going to have a boxing event in Hertfordshire this week. We're going to have a boxing event in Essex this week. We're going to have a boxing event in York Hall, London this week. So that venue is making absolutely substantial amount of funds. Which part of the UK? I'm from Essex. I was in Hertfordshire last year. Anyway, as we're moving forward, Proclamation News and Gavins is proudly sponsored by PSS Alarms. Make your family safety around your house, your perimeter of your house. Make your safety paramount. It doesn't matter even if you've got a small townhouse or a small flat. Make your safety paramount, because everything you've had of your children, you saved up for your children's life. You've got no house insurance. If you've got cameras, CCTV up, you're making your family's safety paramount. You see who's coming, putting their letters for the letterbox. See the police coming to the door, ambulance, anyone. You don't know if they're going to break in, or debt collectors. You know who's coming to the door. With CCTV, who's breaking into your property, stealing your stuff, taking your identity. Also, nightclubs, pubs, restaurants, offices of any kind of been for CCTV. You want the best and most etiquette and pragmatic, with intelligence and style and etiquette in professionalism and a decent, aristocracy mannerism. Doesn't smoke, doesn't drink, doesn't take narcotics. He's very, very professional in business. I used to go around pricing up jobs with him. What an absolute phenomenal, clean businessman. When you get builders come to your door and they're smoking outside your property, flicking fags all over the floor, it's not exactly a good role model around your children or your wife or your husband if he's at home and you go to work, vice versa. Anyway, so very etiquette and pragmatic works carried out. All areas covered, including central station, monitoring provided, all work done according to insurance requirements. This is a friend of mine's company. It includes central station monitoring, all work according to insurance requirements. This is my friend's. This is my friend's company. He's carried out works on Harry Kane's stepmother's house in Hertfordshire, Potter's Bar. The house is like a multi-million-pound outlet. He uses cable ties, so there's not ties hanging off guttering or underneath the fascia. He carries out etiquette works in Essex, such as Bar restaurant, other pubs and nightclubs, and many more big businesses. Please call Tariq Khan if you want CCTV put up in your business. Maybe you're going to open a library or cafe or hairdressers. Anything you need CCTV for, this is your man. So there you go. Please call Tariq Khan. Contact details 07 908 216 142. I mean, how much does your business mean to you? Call Tariq Khan on 07908 216 142. Or you can call me on 075 11 953 104. Or you can call me on in England. You need English code if you're in England. If you're out of England, then unless you can pay for his flight and his overnight stay and his family, then I don't think he'll be going abroad anytime soon. Unless he's going on holiday, he might come and do your apartment perhaps. You can call me on 075 11 953 104. Installation and maintenance of intruder alarms, fire alarms, CCTV, all work guaranteed and certified to SSAIB standards. 24-hour call-out service. It can provide CCTV for pubs, club restaurants, or new business setups. Secure your business. If you mention Professor Johnson for an added discount. Ladies and gents, make sure you secure your business. PSS Alarms. Very, very professional and etiquette with style and sense. You want someone clean cut, clean shaven. You want someone that doesn't smoke. For absolute clean and tidy and professional, come into your business. So there you go. Make sure. I'll tell you what, if you follow me on Up Live, I'll put that on my moments so you can see the contact details. I've got over 719 listeners on there, 20 listeners on Castbox. I've had about 2 or 3 listeners on YouTube. What's one on my mind? UK politics. We've got the UK elections coming up, ladies and gents. This show is going to be phenomenal. By the end of this show, we're going to have over 1,000 listeners. I've only just started. We are 25 minutes into the show. Absolutely phenomenal. We've got the elections the 6th of May. 6th of May. It's about another 3 months. In 3 months, the 6th of May. Yeah, it is roughly just under 3 months. Just under 3 months. This is quite strange. Uber drivers are workers, not self-employed. Supreme Court rules. They are workers, not self-employed. Ride-hailing app firm Uber must classify its drivers as workers rather than self-employed. UK's Supreme Court has ruled. This decision means tens of thousands of Uber drivers are set to be entitled to minimum wage and holiday pay. The ruling could leave Uber facing a hefty compensation bill and have wider consequences for the gig and the economy. In the long-running legal battle, Uber had a pill after losing earlier rounds. Massive achievement. Former Uber drivers James Farah and Yazin Aslam, who originally won an employment tribunal against the ride, hauling Abbey giant in October 2016, told the BBC they were thrilled and relieved by the ruling that we are able to stand up against the giant, said Mr. Aslam, president of the App Drivers and Couriers Union, ADCU. We didn't give up, and we were consistent no matter what we went through, emotionally or physically or financially. We stood our ground. Uber appealed against the Employment Tribunal decision, but the Employment Appeal Tribunal upheld the ruling in November 2017. The company then took the case to High Court, upheld the ruling again in December 2018. The ruling on Friday was Uber's last appeal as the Supreme Court is Britain's highest court, and it has the final say on legal matters. Highest court does have the final say, absolutely, because it's the absolute sovereignty of the whole land. Delivering his judgment, Lord Legate said that the Supreme Court unanimously dismissed Uber's appeal, that it was intermediary party, and stated that drivers should be considered to be working not only when a passenger, but whenever logged in to the app. The court considered several elements in its judgment. Uber set the fare, which meant that they dictated how much drivers could earn. Request for rides is constrained by Uber, who can penalise drivers if they reject too many rides. Uber monitors a driver's service, though the star rating, and has the capacity to terminate the relationship if after repeated warnings this does not improve. Looking at these and other factors, the court determined that drivers were in position of subordination to Uber, where the only way could increase their earnings would be to work longer hours. Drivers are struggling. The Supreme Court's ruling that Uber has to consider its drivers' workers from the time they log onto the app until they log off is seen as a key point. Uber drivers typically spend time waiting for people to look for rides on the app. Previously, the firm has said that if drivers were found to be workers, then it would only count the time during journeys when a passenger is in the car. This is a win-win for drivers, passengers, and cities. It means Uber now has the correct economic incentives not to oversupply the market with too many vehicles and too many drivers. Said James Farrar, ADCU's General Secretary, the upshot of that oversupply has been poverty, pollution, and congestion. However, questions still remain about how the new classification will work and how it affects gig economy workers who work not only for Uber but also for other competing apps. Mr. Aslam, who claims Uber's practices forced him to leave the trade as he couldn't make ends meet, is considering becoming a driver for the app again, but he is upset that it took so long. I mean, it's gonna put a strain on your life, isn't it? I mean, you're not known as a worker; you're known as self-employed. Got to pay your own tax, got to pay your own stamp. Very, very frustrating. Absolutely. It took 6 years to establish that we should have got in 2015. Someone somehow in the government or the regulator massive letdown these workers, many of whom are precautious position, he said. Mr. Farrar points out that with fares down to 8% due to the pandemic, many drivers are struggling financially and feel trapped in the Uber system. I heard that a lot of people have to thank you, Jack Sheldon, for supporting the show. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely appreciate it. We're seeing so many members of earning £30 gross a day right now. He said, explaining that the self-employment grants issued by the government only cover 8% of the driver's profits, which isn't enough to pay for the costs. If we had these rights today, those drivers could at least earn a minimum wage to live on. Impact on Uber. When Uber listed its shares in the US in 2019, its filing with the US Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC), including a section on risk to its businesses. The company said in its section that if it had to classify drivers as workers, it would incur significant additional expenses in compensating the drivers for things such as a minimum wage and overtime. Further, any such reclassification would require us to fundamentally change our business model and consequently have an adverse effect on our business and financial condition, it added. Uber also wrote in the filing that if Mr. Farrier and Mr. Aslam were to win their case, HM Revenue and Customs HMRC would then classify the firm as transport provider, and Uber would need to pay a VAT on fares. The company has long argued it is booking agent which hires self-employed contractors that provide transport. After this show, we're going to come back on YouTube. We're going to do a professional sing-along, ladies and gents. So make sure you come back. We're going to do, well, I'll say professional. Best as my ability. I won't say professional. We call mediocre singing habilitations because I don't tend to be a singer, but I enjoy it, absolutely. COVID vaccines. Boris Johnson pledges surplus to poor countries at G7. Boris Johnson will pledge to donate most of the UK's surplus vaccine supply to poor countries in a speech to a virtual G7 meeting on Friday. He will urge rich countries to back a 100-a-day target for developing new vaccines for future emerging diseases. The UK has ordered more than 400 million doses of various vaccines. So many will be left over once all adults are vaccinated. But anti-poverty campaigners say in the UK is not doing enough. Decision on when how much of the surplus will be distributed will be made later this year, with ministers taking into account the supply chain and whether booster shots are needed in the autumn. French President Emmanuel Macron has told the Financial Times richer countries should send up to 4 to 5% in their current vaccine supplies to poor nations. But foreign ministers James cleverly told BBC Radio 4's Today programme the UK would be looking at a significantly greater than that. He promised the government would be a global force for good in fighting the pandemic, and unlike some countries, the UK would not use the promise of vaccine supplies to other countries as short-term diplomatic leverage. But it was difficult to say at this stage when the sharing would happen. Mr. Cleverly added, a government source said more than half the excess doses could go to COVAX, a UN initiative intended to ensure wider access to vaccines. The UK government has donated 548 million to the scheme, to which the US pledged 4 billion, 2.9 billion in December. Almost 17 million people in the UK have now received the least one vaccine dose, with 573,724 of these receiving 2 doses, according to the latest figures. Looking at the analysis by Naomi Grimley, Global Health Correspondent. In the locals' scramble to secure vaccines against COVID-19, many wealthy countries which funded a lot of the research have ended up buying more supplies than needed. New figures from the Anti-Poverty Pressure Group, the One campaign, revealed that Australia, Canada, Japan, the UK and the US and the UN have already secured more than 3 billion doses. 1.2 billion more than they need to give their entire populations 2 doses. The UK also given 548 million to COVAX, the UN-led attempt to give vaccines out to poor countries. But campaigners say they want hard facts on how many actual doses Britain will now be donating to the mechanism. Some 130 countries in the world haven't done any vaccinations at all, and healthcare workers in those countries remain at high risk. And even if COVAX plans, it's only designed to cover 20% of each nation's population, far short of the herd immunity expected in wealthy countries. Mr. Johnson will use his position as a chairman of the G7 group in major economies to push the case for setting a 100-a-day target for developing vaccines when new diseases strike. The development of viable coronavirus vaccines offers a tantalizing prospect of a return to normality, but we must not rest on our laurels. He says, as leader of the G7, we must today, never again. Friday virtual meeting will be the first gathering of the G7 since April 2020 last year. The first international meeting for the new US President, Joe Biden. Thank you all ever so much. We've got Sir Keir Starmer coming up just in a jiffy. We're going to have a short, brisk of a break. I've got to make a couple of contacts. It'll be shortly, won't be long. Please stay here, stay observant, stay preserved. We've got Welling and Hatfield, Essex. We've got some also to the youth of today. So people coming through to the show and sharing it, it means a lot because it's not only getting out of the world, hopefully. Like some people can take some, be influenced by my courageous ideas. And hopefully everyone can drive safely in a sensible manner. That's what we need. Absolutely.
You know what you got to do. You know what it's got to be.
Dominic Cummings. A. Chapman is in the building. We have segments and we have A. Chapman calling in. He's an absolute phenomenal guy. Really is. We just got a short break and then we're going to get back to the show.
Boris Johnson is in a bit of two of Dominic Cummings' friends. Now, Dominic Cummings is no longer in number 10. He left last year, but he is still causing trouble, and he's back in the news again because of this. This firm was handed this contract to the value of £500,000, and there was no tendering process. What that means is that there was no, the government did not advertise this to businesses who would then compete, present the best price available for the government, and the government would choose normally the lowest price. That was not the case here. This was Dominic Cummings recommending to the government, hire this company to do this work, and that's exactly what they did. So let's see the report, and then I'll come back in a moment with some more information about Public First.
Prime Minister's former advisor, Dominic Cummings, has defended his involvement in a contract awarded by the government to a company run by two of his friends. The Good Law Project has taken legal action over the decision to pay £500,000 of taxpayers' money to a market research company called Public First last March. The campaigners claim Mr. Cummings wanted the company to get the contract and that there was no formal tendering process. Lawyers for the Cabinet Office said he had simply recommended a firm he knew job done, while Mr. Cummings himself said in a witness statement he had never requested Public First because they were his friends, insisting he would never do such a thing.
So he said he would never do such a thing. Okay, so we must trust Dominic Cummings in the same way that we must trust Boris Johnson. Now, a little bit more information about Public First. So it's a commercial lobbying firm. It was set up in 2017 by former Portland and Westburn lobbyist James Ferrane and ex-government education advisor Rachel Wolfe. Ferrane worked at Policy Exchange as a director of policy immediately before setting up Public First. Now, Policy Exchange is a right-wing think tank which is run by a guy who writes or who has written articles for the Daily Mail and the Express, including other newspapers. So we get a general idea of what type of people we're dealing with. And just to look at some of the people who are part of this Public First entity, it says here once again Rachel Wolfe, founding partner. Rachel Wolfe, her career began as an education and political advisor to the Conservative Party and was a policy advisor to Boris Johnson on his first mayoral campaign. James Frayne has held senior positions at Portland and Westburn and a Director of Communications at the Department of Education under Michael Gove. Another person, Gabriel Milland, he was Head of External Communications at the Ministry of Justice and Head of Communications at the Department of Education. His last Whitehall role was Deputy Director, Government Communications Service at the Cabinet Office. He has deep and wide contacts across all parts of the media, political parties, and Whitehall. Another interesting person is Nick Verley, who is a specialist in grassroots campaigning and corporate reputation management. He joined the agency from Stonehaven, where he worked from January 2017, leading an integrated communications campaign for major clients in tech, telecoms, transport, and infrastructure sectors. This is the interesting part. He was previously an election consultant with CTF Partners, advising international clients on electoral strategy. He was head of ground campaign for Vote Leave during the EU referendum. So these are the types of people we're talking about. These are the friends of Dominic Cummings who provide this commercial lobbying. And I've talked about lobbying before. Lobbying is legalized corruption in a sense, where companies hand over money or hire people, and then these people have connections to the government, and then the government do their bidding. So it's a type of corruption with a conduit in between. You see, instead of the business handing money over directly to the government or the minister involved that they want to corrupt, what they do is they set up these bodies, or these entities already exist. Companies give them money or hire these individuals, and then they gain influence with the government, and of course win contracts. So unfortunately, I think nothing is really going to come from this. Boris Johnson will just swat it away like a fly. The media isn't going to focus on it, unfortunately, and it will be swept under the carpet like every other form of corruption. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee. So why not check it out?
Right, agent. There you go. Well, everyone, we're on. We've got about 1,000 listeners now. We've got 1,000 listeners. I want to go back to my sponsor, and I just want to say we're going to welcome A. Chapman in building. He's always participating in netiquette research. We have a great conversation. Do you know what? It makes a show. Our conversation where we touch base of our old constituency in Hertfordshire. I was in 2019 to 20. Okay, buddy. I've just been given the update of Mr. A. Chapman. Unfortunately, he can't call in. So my phone, people just interrupt my life trying to ring in. Sorry there. We are proudly sponsored by PSS Alarms. Very pragmatic and etiquette works carried out. All areas are covered, including Central Station. Monitoring provided. All work according to insurance requirements. This is a friend of mine's company. He's carried out works in Harry Kane's stepmother's house in Hertfordshire, Potter's Bar. All the works carried out are, throughout the building has cable ties, so there's no there's wires hanging off, just hanging off the where he's wired up through the the soffit, the fascia or the soffit. So there you go, all nice and tidy in the corner of the building, so they can't be seen. Very, very professional done. There you go. I've been out there pricing up jobs. He doesn't smoke. He's very clean, tidy, very professional. There you go. And he's very business minded. He'll come out all hours of the day, including central station monitoring provided, all work according to insurance requirements. This is a friend of mine's company. He carried out work at Harry Kane's stepmother's in Hertfordshire Potts Bar. He's carried out etiquette works in Essex, such as Casbah Restaurant, other pubs, restaurants, nightclubs, factory outlets, businesses such as offices. Please call Ted Khan. Contact details 07908 216 142 07908 07908 07908 216 142 07908 216 142. That's Tarek Khan. Or you can call me on 075 119 075 119 5310 075 119 93104. Installation and maintenance of intruder alarms, fire alarms, CCTV, all works guaranteed and certified to SSAIB standards, 24-hour call-out service. Can provide CCTV for pubs, clubs, restaurants, nightclubs, business setup. Secure your house, your home, your garage, your yard, scrap yard, anything you need to get secure. Your safety is paramount. Your safety is paramount. Your children's, your property. Mention Professor Johnson for an extra discount. Anyway, we're going over to Sir Keir Starmer. Thank you ever so much for being patient. Sir Keir Starmer saving scheme would boost UK's recovery post-COVID. Millions of savers would be given a chance to invest in the UK's recovery from coronavirus crisis under proposals set out by Sir Keir Starmer. The Labour leader's British Recovery Bond Scheme is the counterpiece of his alternative plan for the national recovery ahead of the 3rd of March's budget. He also proposed start-up loans for 100,000 new small firms, especially in areas outside the South East. The Conservatives said Sir Keir had stolen most of his ideas from them. Chancellor Rishi Sunak will set out the government's plans to haul the UK economy out the deepest recession in 300 years in his budget speech next month. But Sir Keir said the Conservatives were incapable of seizing this moment, adding, "All we can accept from his government is more of the same." Labour would choose a different path. The government said it has spent $280 billion to help the economy through the pandemic, including tax breaks, grants, and wage supports for workers. But Sir Keir told the BBC would have to judge the government on its record. With 10 years of weakening out of foundations, the putting money out of our public services, the underfunding of the NHS, and the failure to fix care homes. In an interview with the BBC's deputy political editor, Vicky Young, But Sir Keir would be put judge of the government on its record for 10 years weakening our foundations, the pulling money out of public services, the funding of the NHS, and the failure to fix care homes. In an interview with the BBC's deputy political editor, Vicky Young, the Labour leader said, "You can't clap your key workers during a pandemic, then go back to business as usual, and that is where the government will lead. The first step has to be recovery and thriving economy, and if you put taxes up or you go for austerity, you will throttle that before you have even got to first base. We have been through too much here, and there is a parallel with World War II, where people have been through sacrifice and solidarity, and they want a better future. And that is what I am setting out the path to." Conservative Party co-chair Amanda Milling. accused Labour of stealing her party's policies, adding, after 11 months of Keir Starmer, all Labour has to offer is others' ideas. Empty, theoretic, and calling things the government is already doing. Security for savers. The main policy the Labour put forward was a British recovery fund. That's what they're saying about Sir Keir Starmer. He's a bit of a he's a copycat, isn't he? He's copycat. He contradicts everyone's ideas, trying to make a transformation in policies and agreements, but he's contradicting himself in a lot of Boris's statements. The Conservatives already plans and inputs. I mean, Conservative, they're traditional. They've been going for decades and decades. They've got big, full of ministers, other ministers. So, their massive government policy been going for donkeys, decades, years. Security for savers. The main policy a Labour leader put forward was a British recovery fund. I mean, let's go back. Go back years and years and years. I'm just going back on top of my knowledge. William Ewart Gladstone, Maurice Macmillan. I'm going to probably jump forward. Winston Churchill. I'll probably jumping even more forward. We're going to say John Major, David Cameron, Theresa May, Boris Johnson. It's so many, much more. I probably missed out decades in between, but you can get decades before that even. I've read it in the constitutional law books. I've been studying arts and humanities, all social law. There's so many different politicians within Conservative Club that have been going for decades and decades. I'm pretty sure some of you guys probably name a lot older. That's without even looking. That's the top of my head, the tip of my tongue of my knowledge. I'm quite knowledgeable. I wouldn't say I'm the most intelligent person when it comes to politics. I do know a fair share, a crack at the whip, because I've been studying it for many, many years. I can talk about globalisation, how it impacts a lot of people. When they get silly people that are fascists. I know that none of you listeners are probably fascists, but when you hear of racism, fascist commitment, people not realising about globalisation, the food the clothes they wear, the electronics they're using, where it all comes from. The coffee you're drinking. The main distribution of coffee bean comes from Vietnam and Ethiopia. That's the two main globalisation things in the country, in the whole wide world. So that's the two main seed of the coffee in their farm fields. Absolutely. Because how do I know that? It's because I've been studying it, and it's I probably studied that about 6 months ago, but I'm like a sponge because I absorb information that I read. Security for savers. The main policy the Labour leader put forward was a British recovery fund. The Labour government would offer people a saving account with the government at a competitive interest rate similar to previous national savings and industrial bonds. The cash raise would then be spent on rebuilding the country post-COVID. It comes off the back of figures from the Bank of England, which showed households have accumulated over 125 billion excess savings by November 2020, estimated to hit 250 billion by June 2021. But with only 5% of the savings expected to be spent, with much of the interest sitting in savings account, what's 5% of 250 billion, do you reckon? At hazard of a guess, I couldn't give you that answer. It's not 50 billion or 5%. It's about 5. Is it 5 billion? I don't know. 5% of 100 billion is 5 billion, I believe. I'm not quite sure. Do your maths. Anyone that's good at maths, give me that answer. 5% of 250 billion will be spent in savings. Will be around 5% of the savings expected to be spent. Sir Keir said the money could be used to invest in local communities, jobs and businesses, as well as providing security for savers and giving millions of people a proper stake in Britain's future. The Conservatives said the policy was the same as the one proposed by the Northern Reach research group of Tory MPs, Although Group's Northern Recovery Bond plan is not government policy. But speaking to BBC, Sir Keir said the Chancellor was instead pinning a lot of hope on the idea that those who have saved during the pandemic are going to spend all that money in the short term. He added, I don't think that it is realistic, and I don't think that the Bank of England does. What the bond does is provide a way for people to invest in the future of their country in a secure way, and obviously then release money for infrastructure projects. We can look at the analysts by Helen Catt. This is a political correspondent. The pandemic has blurred political lines over the last year. Conservatives have been forced to become big spending, big government. Meanwhile, Labour has been stuck between being criticised for being too supportive and, when has been critical, being accused of carping from the sidelines. The point of his speech was to take voters out of the extraordinary circumstances of the pandemic and remind them of a party politics of before. Although, of course, not exactly those politics, and this was also an opportunity for Sir Keir to address some of the pressure that to start setting out his vision for Labour. So there was a promise of continuing with significant government intervention in the economy, but was also of financial responsibility and making business pivotal. The big policy reveal of the speech, British recovery bonds, neatly sums up that aim Sir Keir set out of long-term investment partnership and giving people a stake in society. But it relies on those who have been left better off from the pandemic rather than many who have not. Saving bonds. Saving bonds are also known for being pretty low risk. The choice of this as a policy to unveil is unlikely to pacify those who would like to see Labour being more radical. Sir Keir also proposed to provide an extra $1 billion of funding for the Startup Loans Company, which provides finance for people wanting to launch their own business. The Labour leader said the scheme had offered less than 9,500 loans per year since it started in 2012, with nearly £1 in £4 going into London compared to just 5.7 going to the North East. Sir Keir said targeting existing funding and tweaking the scheme would help to create 100,000 small businesses across the country. He also reiterated his party calls for the government to extend the weekly £20 increase to universal credit benefits, introduced last year beyond its scheduled end date on the 31st of March. Extend the business rates, holiday and VAT offered to firms in the leisure and hospitality sectors by April. Do you reckon it'd be nice if the government give us, especially us performers, I'm doing this day in, day out. I've got 1,037 listeners on Up Live. I've got 21 listeners on Castbox, possibly 2 listeners on YouTube. By the time I share it out today, could have another 30 on YouTube. I'm not talking absolute populism. People coming in supporting the show time in, time again. I'm getting the message across the board. I'm giving people news that, it saves you reading. I'm taking the brain ache. I'm the one sitting here reading day in, day out. All you got to do is observe, enjoy, relax, see what's going on in not just your constituent, in the whole domain of the UK. You can also, if you're from another country, you can sort of live your life in prosperity. Think our party politics is, our sovereignty of the land is a bit more better divided up through our politic regions compared to yours. The structure of your country is what remains your life. Give local councils the funding they need to avoid having to use new powers to raise council tax by up to 5%. Budget pressures. A budget had been expected to take place in autumn last year, but it was delayed until next month because of coronavirus pandemic. COVID restrictions have been prompted the government to spend billions in unprecedented interventions aimed at keeping the economy afloat during the crisis. This has published up to UK debt to 2.13 trillion, equivalent to 99.4% of gross domestic product, GPD, a level not seen since the early 1960s. The Chancellor is under pressure from MPs and industry groups to extend support measures, but also to spell out when and how the UK's debt can be paid down. I'm going to get through what's going on inside in Hertfordshire. Welling friends. Thank you ever so much, Estella, for the COVID-19 volunteers need to help the vaccine in effort. Now, you've got to give your only round of applause to all the volunteers that go and give the vaccine. They're at high risk doing their job by protecting others. It's absolutely phenomenal. Vaccine volunteers outside the centre or at the uni. Is asking for volunteers. The patient participation group needs marshals to assist with directing patients, running the flow and helping to ensure the smooth running of the operation in Hatfield. Volunteers are needed to help out for 1 or 2 reasons a week, either 8 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. or 1 p.m. to inform the hub, sanitize patients' hands before entering the hub, and sanitize the chairs once patients have been vaccinated for them. Deputy Mayor Celia Peter Hebden, created by Kathy Benook. Peter Hebden, Deputy Mayor of Welling Hatfield Borough Council, has been assisting with the marshalling, has said is also happy to have received the vaccine and know that we played a small part in helping it happen. Volunteers can contact Martin Colony at martin.colony@outlook.com for more information. There you go, Welling Hatfield. Welling Hatfield, that comes to the horizon. On YouTube, we're about 1 hour, 6 minutes. You can always copy and screen it and put it in your region so everyone can hear it. Be updated with the latest news in Welling. Have your say on whether to keep Hatfield public spaces protected from anti-social behaviour. People throwing alcohol, just fly tipping their rubbish. I mean, I was there. But a lot of drinkers. Residents and businesses are invited to have their say on whether to retain public spaces, protect the PSPO. Currently in place of Hatfield, including the town centre, a PSPO helps to protect shared spaces. And making this a protection, you're probably going to have to pay a protection rate because that's what it's all about. I didn't get paid no protection, protecting people, drinking in town centre. I just done it out of the goodness of my heart. I don't want to see people drinking around children, out of school out of us. It's not fair on children, is it? The PSPO cannot be applied for longer than 3 years without review, and the current order in Hatfield was introduced in the summer 2018. The aim of consultation is to understand any concerns residents may have about the town centre environment, including the impact of street drinking, begging and rough sleeping, and whether or not a PSPO is the right solution to address these concerns. Although the emphasis is out of outreach and support work to tackle these issues, a PSPO could provide a useful tool in some cases where more serious action is necessary. Councillor Bernard Sarson, Executive Member for Regeneration, Economic Development and Partnership, said it is important that everyone can safely enjoy our shared spaces. So we're keen to hear of any concerns people may have and their thoughts on how the current PSPO has worked. The PSPO is just one part of the work that goes on across the borough and in partnership with our local organisations to reduce anti-social behaviour and help residents access the relevant support for their needs. Last year, traders voiced concerns at anti-social behaviour in Hatfield Centre in a series, the Welling Hatfield one, on the problems facing those working in a shopping centre. A shop owner who did not want to be named said constant rubbish and street drinking affects her business. One of the employees just doesn't feel comfortable with the drinking outside and going past them, she said. I'm always removing rubbish from the back, beer bottles and food. They just don't care, and they scratch my car all the time as well. Residents and business can find out more and complete the consultation survey online at one.wellhat.gov.uk/PSPO. Alternatively, consultation documents are available by calling the ASB and communities team on 01707 357706. The consultation is open from Wednesday, the February the 10th to Thursday, March the 18th. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Let's have a short break and then we're coming straight back. We've got another. Hello there, Emma Hohen and Sharon Troy. Thank you for coming through. Everyone for supporting my talk show on UK politics. Essex, Hatfield Live. We've got some no business, like show business, coming up briefly. All you loyal listeners, if you don't mind supporting the show, I've got my PayPal details above. Even something a small donation, something that's 50p, pound perhaps. Every day I put this hard work, ethical work in. I do it methodically every day, 6 days a week. I go to my mum and dad's 1 day a week. I'm at it 6 days a week. A small donation will give me that that self-preservance and self-observation, self-maintained, self-discipline, self-motivated. Not self-motivated. You guys give me motivation by supporting the show. Means an awful lot. It's like paying your tips at a church. But it's not a church. It's real life. This is happening in real life every day.
You 440 million will have her back. So what have you really succeeded actually in just dividing the UK and uniting the EU?
Well, the UK actually is coming together in the most remarkable way. Most remarkable way. Now, you wouldn't know that living in Brussels, obviously. But it's coming together in the most remarkable way. A very large number of people who voted Remain say it's a democratic result. Let's just get on with it. Even the Financial Times, who wanted us to join the euro, who have been completely opposed to Brexit ever since 2016, even the Financial Times now say this is happening. Let's accept it and let's make the best of it and make a success of it. So actually the country is coming together in a remarkable way. And I would say that those who are unreconciled, let's think of perhaps Lord Adonis as a very good example. You know, Lord Adonis, who does not accept that we're leaving on Friday evening, who says he won't even use the commemorative 50p coin that's been minted, they're beginning to look a little bit like members of the Flat Earth Society. All right, so we are moving on with this. Yeah, look, there are battles to come, of course there are. I want us, of course, to be like normal countries like Norway, like Iceland. You know, international law gives us 200 miles in fishing. Norway has 200 miles of the North Sea, which she runs and operates with a policy which is a damn sight better than the abysmal common fisheries policy. And environmentally, it's a better policy. And foreign boats can fish in Norwegian territory, but they do so under license, under a set of rules that are set by the Norwegians. And that is what we should aim to do. You know, we do understand there are issues like historic access. Of course we do. The question is, who is in charge? Who is making those decisions? And I think if we get fisheries right, we will carry the British public with us by being able to sell something that environmentally is a damn sight better than it's been for the last 30 or 40 years.
Okay, I think this will be the last question.
No, keep going.
Well, I'm happy to.
Keep going.
Just about tonight, Nigel Farage will be leaving the Parliament, European Parliament for the last time tonight, about 8:05 from the main entrance on Plaslock side. So if you're around and you're not busy, you know where to be there with your camera. So this lady with the striped shirt, please.
Thank you. Ines Sabotovichova from Slovak Daily Smack. Mr. Farage, I believe that we both agree that today's vote on the withdrawal agreement
itself is now almost a formality, and there already is a talk about the future trade deal between UK and the EU. And how do you think this deal should look like so it would mean that it is real Brexit?
Well, real Brexit, of course, means that we're not under the auspices of the European Court of Justice. Real Brexit means that we're not aligned in terms of regulation. Real Brexit means that we have an independent foreign policy, not an EU one. That's what real Brexit looks like. And these are the challenges that Boris Johnson faces. But, to be fair, in his manifesto, during the campaign, since the campaign, and even Sajid Javid at Davos, are saying they will deliver a real Brexit. And we, for now, are putting our faith and trust in them to do that, but we're there, ready, as I said earlier, they're ready earlier if they slip, if they drop the ball to catch it. So there is a problem here, obviously, in what is written into the document we're being asked to vote on this afternoon, and what Boris put in his election manifesto. There are contradictions. There's no question about that. There are contradictions, and the front page of the Times yesterday was illustrating potentially what those contradictions are. I understand that. Nothing in life is perfect. What we're voting on at 6 o'clock tonight is whether we leave under the terms of this agreement or whether we leave on WTO terms in 48 hours. That's what the vote is tonight. So I'm tempted to think, wouldn't it be fun? Wouldn't it be fun to try and corral a parliamentary majority for us just to leave with a clean break on Friday evening? But it isn't going to happen. I suspect there'll be quite a large number of abstentions in the chamber today, but very clearly it is going to pass. So that's my position. I don't like it, but I take the Prime Minister's word. I take him as a man of honour. You see, not everyone does, but I do. Yes, of course. If I thought by voting no, there might be a majority, but I can't be kinking you and try and stand there and stop the tie. It just won't work.
I'm with beard and blue. Agence France Press. Is Scotland a square peg in a round UK hole? And if any Scots feel that way, should they push as you have done until they get their referendum? The old alliance.
Well, if the Scottish National Party were campaigning for independence, I would respect them. They're not. They're campaigning to become a region of the European Union. The whole thing's bonkers. It's a totally false prospectus that Nicola Sturgeon is trying to sell to her people. And of course, in a sense, it was the question that Salmond couldn't answer in the referendum, back in 2014. What would happen with the currency? What would the terms of the relationship be when they applied to join the European Union? I suspect he's got some more tough questions to answer in the next few weeks, but that's a different story. Sturgeon's EU fanaticism, I think, is a real problem to her, because about a third of SNP voters voted Brexit because they really want independence from the United Kingdom. So look, I think these stories that Scotland somehow will leave the UK because we're leaving the EU, not a cat's chance in hell. I just do not see it. Whatever the terms of the deal or shape of future trade agreements, once Brexit has happened, once we've left, that becomes the new status quo. And reversing the status quo is a very difficult thing to do, all of which makes the victory on June the 23rd, 2016, all the more remarkable.
Or News Not News. Yes, let's have it. Oh, you beauty.
Yeah, hello. Matt Fry here, Channel 4 News in the UK. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. You said it yourself earlier that you have managed to change the course of British politics, perhaps more than anyone else, without ever having managed to get elected to the Westminster Parliament. So would you now, in your hour of departure, acknowledge that Brexit would probably never have happened if you hadn't had the stage of this Parliament to promote your campaign?
I remember the evening, 1999. We were in the Guildhall in Winchester, which is where the South East region, pretty pretty meaningless concept, but hey. And the votes were coming in, and we'd scored 11.5% in the southeast, and therefore, as top of the list for UKIP, I was elected. And I remember my first interview, and Phil Hornby from Meridian, he may even be in the room today. And you know, first question I was asked was, well, the first thing he said to me was, well, Nigel, congratulations. And that was how I knew it wasn't the BBC asking the questions. And I said, well, isn't it ironic, you know, that I'm being voted into a parliament that I condemn under an electoral system that I'm deeply sceptical about? And look, oh, by the way, the second question he asked me, great question, and it's my best ever answer. He said, Nigel, you're off to Brussels, you'll be on Eurostar next week. When you get to your office, there'll be a never-ending list of invitations to lunches, dinners, parties, champagne receptions. Do you, he said, think that you'll become corrupted by the lifestyle? And I replied, live on air, my first ever proper live interview. I said, no, I've always lived like that. And I think that still is the best answer I've ever given. Matt, let's be honest about it. It was the platform of being an MEP that meant within weeks I was invited to speak at the Oxford Union. It was the platform of being an MEP that meant I was first invited on to BBC's Question Time, which in those days had a very important place in our national discourse, much more than today. So yes, it was. And then a remarkable thing happened. YouTube got invented. And I think that the rise of UKIP, the really rapid rise of UKIP, the rapid recognisability of me, whether they like me or not was irrelevant, but the British public began to know who I was. And once they know who you are, they do begin to listen to what you say. And I think that from 2008, you know, I used my position in the Parliament on the front row.
I'm going to pause Nigel Friday. He's a phenomenal straight all across the channel of the world. Every ocean, every country, every nation is well known. Nigel Farage. He's phenomenal. MEP, member, European Parliament. Essex and travel. Traffic and travel. Think safety, think first. Do not enter your vehicle under. Think first, think safety. Do not enter the vehicle under the influence of alcoholism or narcotics. At least 24 hours to get out your system. So you know, you can have a drink and maybe narcotics. Who knows? I don't know what people, you know, what everyone's go-to is with their alcohol. But talking on previous years of growing up, you see people overindulging alcohol and narcotics as their go-to in life. It takes 24 hours for it to come out your system. Then you need some form of sleep. So you're talking like 2 days theoretically. So if you a weekend drinker and you work 6 days, 5 days a week, you want to have a drink at the end of the week because you've had a long day, you've got children, you want a bit of respite, you feel like you've earned your rest. You know, your rest to go to your go-to. You need to leave it till, you know, drink on a Friday, do whatever you're going to do, enjoy yourself. Do not enter your vehicle at least till Sunday evening. Have a good sleep all day, Sunday, all morning. Because Saturday, it's going to take all that day and night to recover because you've been up all night on a Friday night. You're catnipping. I call it catnipping because you're sleeping here and there as you can throughout the day, watching Netflix with children on settee perhaps. Don't enter your vehicle till Sunday. Do not put your kids' life at risk and others on road users. Your parents, your grandmothers, your nans, anyone's family. Don't enter your vehicle. Make sure you and passengers have seat belts adjacent to the car seat. Babies have car seat belts adjacent adapters to their car seat. Making sure your engine oil, water coolant tank are filled up to the maximum level. Check your MOT is updated. Check your car is roadworthy. Making sure your engine management light's not on. If it is, take it in to be monitored by the engine management system plugins in any garage. When I say garage, I mean petrol garage, car garage. Check your PSI limits. Make sure you have sufficient PSI air pressure in your tyres before takeoff. Making sure you got sufficient fuel to your destination. Do not turn without looking in your centre wing mirrors before turning into a safe, sufficient directional choice. Making sure cyclists and motorcyclists are not overtaken, and pedestrians on a crossing as well. Making sure, if you're at a zebra crossing, making sure pedestrians are fully cross the road before emerging forwards. This is why a lot of accidents happen. People don't do the simple rules of measure. Keeping your car 2 meters apart from the car in front as well, to allow for the car in front to signal turn, you to counteract to slow down. It gives you time, gives you a bit of initiative to, your thinking time to slow down. Put your indicator on for the car behind. Hopefully he's 2 meters behind as well. These standing. This is giving you some idea with the lockdown. It's giving you measures in your head to remember about driving. You've got to keep a meter distance apart anyway. When you're queuing up for shops in your car, stay 2 meters back. Gives you that extra bit of time to manoeuvre. When you get to a roundabout or junctions, crossing, make sure you're down in second gear well before you get to, to the junction. First gear if you're going to come to a stop, as you know. And put it in neutral, obviously. Drive on. Anyway, Essex traffic and travel. A133 Cowdray Avenue in Colchester blocked after 3 vehicles have crashed. This is my constituency. Will Quince. Police are blocking road until recovery vehicles arrive. I mean, I'm a bit of a transport instigator. As we know, Grant Shapps, my old constituency, is a transport secretary. I'm under par of Grant Shapps, but I'm working. I've got 1,200 listeners. So I'm reaching a lot of audience. Plus, I'm going to share this all over social media later. So we're at 1 hour and 26 minutes. 1 hour and 26 minutes. I'm going to write that down. I'm going to do the highlights of this episode. 1 hour and 26 minutes. 1:26 hour. Right. A 3-vehicle collision on major route through Colchester has sent one person to hospital. So, it's when, it could have been through some sort of stupid activity, maybe looking at your mobile phone or eating your food. You should pull over, really, Not really, definitely, but people still do it through bone idleness. Essex police are currently on the scene of the crash on Cowdray Avenue in Colchester, Essex, and have blocked the road whilst they wait for recovery vehicles. It's times like this, precedented times like this, when you realise how hard the police work hand in hand throughout the whole, not just for themselves, benefit the safety of our people. They're stopping the road, making sure there's no more further collision, stopping road congestions hopefully as well, because they're signalling people like myself, journalists, what's going on. I can then approach the audience with good guidance, working hand in hand, hard, very, very hard to make our safety paramount. It's not till you realise what they do, theoretically, how hard they work. You might see in the coffee shop having a coffee and a donut, but deservedly, they deserve it. And a lot of pick on their time spent in a cafe or time spent having a free coffee, but they work hard, checking all the human excrement, acting inappropriately. This might have been a pure accident. Every accident, my heart and condolences go out to each and every individual in the scene, because even if it was an accident or was their purpose, we don't want no one harmed in the world. They need to realise their mistakes and better themselves. Everyone makes a mistake in life, and there's opportunity for everyone to admit their flaws and better their aspirations in life. So my heart and condolences go out to whoever and whatever the incident was about. My heart and condolences go out to the person in the accident and any other watchers, passerbyers, or people that wasn't really part of the collision but were involved in the injuries. One person has been taken to hospital this afternoon on Wednesday, February 18th, The North Essex Roads Policing Unit has tweeted early turn are currently at the RTC on Cowdray Avenue, Colchester. Vehicles involved, one had been taken to hospital for their injuries. Anyone that's seen the collision, I don't know what's ahead of us in the text, but if it was on purpose or an accident, it might be worth coming forward, ringing 101, giving the police get a crime reference and put your perspective in what happened. Maybe it was up against a complete accident, or it might have been on purpose. Who knows? Through stupidity, who knows? Road is partially blocked whilst we await for recovery. The accident is an accident is causing disruption in and around the nearby retail park where shoppers are being forced to take an alternative route. It says an accident, but an accident could be if it is on purpose or not. So we're not going to jump to conclusions without getting to the bottom of things. Anyone having to make essential journeys through this area today should seek an alternative route in advance or allow extra time for the journey. To take precautions. This is a courteous message. Take precautions while driving. Think safety, things first. This is Proclamation News and Gatherance with the prodigious, the prominent professor at Proclamation News and Gatherance, P&G. Ratification going on your constituency, you want to get hold of me, give me your perspective of the incident, please email Proclamation News and Gatherance at yahoo.com. Any criminology, affecting your credibilities, please give me a message. Hello there, Ali P. We got over and we're on Castbox all at the same time. I merged my hard effort supporting the whole of how to act in a civil mannerism. Lockdown latest. An Essex MP has warned that a fourth lockdown could not be ruled out. I did say this, another lockdown possibly coming in the forthcoming months, in winter months again, possibly. I don't know. We don't know what the R rate is going to be after the COVID vaccinations. Who knows what's around the corner. Foreign Office Minister and MP for Braintree, James Cleverly, said there could be another national lockdown in the future if it was needed. Speaking to Sky News, Mr. Cleverly said, while he hopes his lockdown will last, future restrictions cannot be ruled out. We do not want it to be the last lockdown. That's what we're working towards, he said. We do want it to be the last lockdown. Sorry. He added, no one can predict with complete certainty what the virus will do. He continued, we are taking the right direct action. We are doing the right things. And we very much hope that this will be the last lockdown. We can't give complete 100% certainty because viruses don't work like that. Mr. Cleverly said it would be wrong for him to speculate on whether summer holidays will be allowed this year. I think it's not even worth booking a summer holiday abroad. Maybe something like not going to Norfolk Baltimore caravan park or something like that. Nothing too, serious. It's going to affect your bank accounts. If you book to go abroad, you got to pay for. You got to pay to quarantine for 14 days before you can go in and out about in the country. So is it worth it? You got to pay X amount. I think it's like 1,000 on a holiday. Speaking later to BBC Breakfast, he said the Prime Minister will be setting out exactly what restrictions we are able to ease and when in as much detail as he is able. But we cannot guarantee because that is how viruses work. Our vaccination programme, our current set of restrictions have been affected. We know that. We are currently assessing how effective and what the implications might be of certain options. But ultimately, we want to open up society, the economy as much as we are able, but only on the condition that it's safe to do so. On summer holidays, he added, I get how frustrated this is. It's completely natural. We all want to get a break from this. I get that, but it would be wrong for me to start speculating now. We're assessing the numbers while making a judgment based on the science, and we'll be making an announcement on Monday. I can't go further than that. Infectious disease expert Dr. Mike Tidsley has stressed that reopening the country too quickly could push the virus R number to increase again. He told BBC Breakfast, we do know any form of reopening will cause the R number to go up, so that needs very, very careful monitoring. The vaccination campaign is going very, very well. But where we need to be careful is if we open too quickly and don't allow the vaccination program to help us along the way. We run the risk of things resurging a little bit. That's what I said. I mean, we've got to counteract with restriction from the R number of last year when we started opening up to tier 3s, tier 4s, tier 2s, and almost back to normality in some regions. Then the R number picked up in all those regions. Then it come back to a standstill as national lockdown. Do we want to run that risk of the same thing? I know we want to get the economy working. We know we've got to go back, try and get things back to some form of normality. We're all itching to go. We're all raring to go back to normality. So you start scratching each other's back. But is it worth the AMID results or the arm number raising? That is the fact that they're running. There's a lot of volatile people out there not realising the risks they could run if we open up certain hospitality sectors, X, Y, and Z. Do we want to run that as a risk? I do not. If I'd want people, and I want the R number to be almost to a standstill myself. But when you've got critics grilling you, coming into committee meetings or hounding number 10 and whatever else, all the other politicians that participate in their region, constituency, are getting hounded at by democracy. They've got to take things into individuality as such. Do we do what needs to be done, or do we do what individuality and necessity means? Wants. Because they're implying that if we don't, we're going to cause harm or danger, perhaps. So you need to start thinking, right, they want some form of normality. They're risking my vulnerable self's life, my vulnerable family's life. We've got to start lifting restrictions gradually. I totally appreciate and understand the need to get children back in the classroom. The key thing for me is we need to do it in a way the schools don't have to close again. On vaccination priority added, I think there certainly is an argument once we go through the key age groups to then look at potentially targeting a lot of key workers. Why not target the schoolers going into school? Why don't the kids get vaccination while they're in school or before they enter school will be better? Because that way the children are protected going to school and protecting the teachers. I know it's going to be a hard rollout session to do, but if they want schools to open, you want some form of safety. Not just teachers, but actually all the key workers on the front line, potentially to prevent them developing severe symptoms and enable them of all sort of stay in school or stay in whatever key worker role they're in. So they can protect their school teachers, which is fine. But the kids can still contaminate the COVID infection. And then it gets spread throughout the school, taken home, parents get it. Parents could take a loss of life. Roman Kemp to fund young male mental health and suicide documentary. Radio presenter Roman Kemp is to fund a documentary exploring mental health issues and suicide in young men. And I always talk about mental health, all the men taking suicide. There's a lot of suicides in alienated fathers. It's not enough for fathers' rights. I haven't once had a phone call of any kind of support to see if I'm okay or, even financially, I've got debts coming out my ears. Doesn't matter how hard I work, I push and work and support our government. There's been no financial release of. I've got people ringing me up. I've got mental health. I don't need people ringing me up on the phone because that affects my head. I've had a head injury. I've been a professional boxer. I don't need any more damage to my head. Really, on the phone, I'm not even joking. The 4G or whatever it is, radioactivity in my head gives me a mens rea habilitations to whoever the occupant is on the other end of the phone. Absolutely, there's not enough support, and it's kind of ground. I'll call that Groundhog Day when someone rings me up talking about bills which I can't fundamentally challenged because I'm in a situation where I can't get work. It's due to unforeseen circumstances. I don't need to alliterate my information or air my dirty laundry. But there should. I'm just saying, other men are in exactly the same situations. You're not only in the only, but you're not the only one in the same boat as me. There is a growing mental health crisis going on right now, and without the right support, the results can be tragic, said Kemp. But one thing I will say, I'm very, very positive. You hear me on the radio 6 days a week, some days 5 days a week. Some days 5 days a week. Roman Kemp, a silent emergency working title, will broadcast on BBC Three. It will explore what can be done to encourage people to seek help and what preventative action can be taken. The programme will also look at lasting impact on mental health issues and suicide can have on friends and families of those involved. Kemp added that he wanted to bring attention to a subject that is affecting thousands of young men across the country and show that there are ways to reach those who are suffering and need our help. BBC Three controller Fiona Campbell believes it is now the station's duty to make such films to provide solutions and help for people who are struggling. This will be really difficult film for Roman to make, and we owe him and everyone else involved a huge thank you for putting trust in us to tell their stories, she said. Thank you ever so much for supporting the show. Almost coming up a standstill. We're going to have a short amid break. We're going to get back predominantly with UK politics. Absolutely. That's what the show's all about. It's absolute phenomenal how you guys are coming back in and back supporting. Just got to take a quick short break. The show has nearly been running for 2 hours.
Recognizability of me, and I used my position in the Parliament on the front row, and some would argue, that I was overly theatrical. Some would say that I hammed it up a bit for the benefit of YouTube, and those critics, those cynical critics, would be entirely right, because that's exactly what I did. So yes, the irony is none of this would ever have happened if we hadn't come to this place. Absolutely.
Adam Parsons, please, Sky.
I'll reintroduce myself, Herman, as you asked us to. Adam Parsons from Sky News. I wonder, on a personal level, you are nothing if not a resolute campaigner whose opinion on a single issue has been pretty steady throughout your career. On that basis, do you trust the Prime Minister to carry your legacy forward? Bearing in mind his opinion on Brexit has fluctuated. And I wonder also, if it gets to December the 31st, we don't have a comprehensive trade deal, would you say it was better for the UK to leave without a deal than to sign up to a bad one?
No deal is better than a bad deal. Just stop somebody in the street and ask them at random, hey, mate, do you want a bad deal? You know what the answer will be. All right? That strikes me as being pretty obvious. And, there's a great big world out there. It's really interesting in these institutions. It's as if you'd think that the EU really was the great global superpower, the source of all knowledge and wonderment. The truth is, the Eurozone is about 15% of global GDP, and next year it'll be 14%. And by 2030, it'll be lucky if it's 7%. All right? That's not to say it's not an important marketplace. It is. But the world is changing. There is a massive transfer of wealth, power, and money going on from west to east. And I suspect that will continue. There'll be some fluctuations with China along the way, but they are the trends. That is what's happening. So to be tied into a bad deal would be a disaster. In this next phase of negotiations, we have got one thing going for us that we didn't have last time around, and it's called fear. There is now genuine fear. Barnier wanted to make sure from day one that we would not be able to break free of the rule book, that we would not be able to become competitive. And this is This is global corporatism. That is how the EU economy is run. That is why the big businesses support it. That is why it's good for business, but a nightmare for most small and medium-sized businesses. We've moved a long way away from a model that has anything to do with capitalism, because by its very nature of the attempt to impose a level playing field, the European single market is anti-competitive. Anti-competitive within, and it protects itself from the rest of the world by using tariff barriers. It's become quite the opposite thing to what my mum and dad thought they were voting for in that referendum back in 1975. And, you can see it already with Merkel and many others. They are terrified of us becoming a competitor, a neighbouring competitor. And that is exactly what we need to be. I remember shortly after the referendum in Strasbourg, there was a German MEP, he was elected originally called Hans-Olaf Henkel, and he'd been the former boss of the German equivalent of the CBI.
No way! No way!
That was Bitcoin advert. Anyone for or in Bitcoin? I'm not sure. I'm not really a gambler, but I've heard Bitcoin it's a risk. I've heard Bitcoin is not a bad investment. I'm not telling you what to do with your money. Each to their own devices. It's a gamble. Anyone that take a risk in gambling is probably the better idea to gamble. I wouldn't say gamble though, because it's not the best way to gamble. Gambling is not a way of life. Votingcounts.org.uk. Vote in 2021 elections. Your vote matters. Scottish Parliament, Senedd Ceremony, English local councils, regional mayors, London Mayor and Assembly, police, crime and crime commissioners. Register your vote online. Make sure you register your vote online. Absolutely. Very, very important to get involved and register your vote. COVID-19, UK surplus vaccine pledge and 2 million not given flight refunds. Don't be Barnardo and be stubborn not to press the button to vote. Here are 5 things you need to know about the coronavirus pandemic this Friday morning. We'll have another update for you this evening. UK pledges surplus COVID vaccines to poorer nations, with the UK having ordered more than 400 million doses of various coronavirus vaccines. It's expected to have many left over once all adults have been offered jabs, and Prime Minister Boris Johnson will pledge to donate a majority of that surplus to poor countries in a speech to fellow leaders of the rich nations in the G7 letter. Wales plans wider school return on 15th of March. Primary pupils aged 8 and over may be able to return to school. In Wales, from 15th of March, if COVID cases continue to fall, children aged between 3 and 7 are due back in class on Monday, and First Minister Mark Drakeford will later announce proposal for the return of the pupils. However, stay-at-home lockdown rules are expected to stay in place for another 3 weeks. Health workers appeal for better protective gear. Nearly 20 major healthcare bodies are appealing to the PM for better masks and other personal protection against coronavirus, saying current measures to stop airborne spread of disease are inadequate. They say at least 930 health and care workers have died of COVID-19, and more are experiencing long-term effects. The government says the safety is a priority. It's monitoring evidence on airborne transmission and will update advice when. We can't get a refund for our £980 flights. More than 2 million people have not been refunded for flights they were unable to board due to coronavirus restrictions and may not be entitled to one, according to which consumer group. Rebecca Howe says she lost £980 after restrictions introduced by Spain on Christmas Eve meant. Hello, Lollipop. I'll be with you, man. I've just got about 5 more minutes. It even meant her family couldn't travel to Lanzarote. We asked for a refund, but we were told that the flight was still operating. We were entitled, she says. Give me literally about 2 minutes. I'm feeling anxious yet also optimistic, following the government's appointment of former Love Island contestant Dr. Alex George as its youth mental health ambassador. We ask a group of young people what's keeping them hopeful through lockdown. Here's what they say. Hope you're good this morning. Get a longer daily news briefing from the BBC in your inbox each weekday morning. And don't forget, you can find out more information and advice on guidelines on our coronavirus page. Remind yourself who should be shielding it and why. 119,000 COVID death patients and 119,387 total cases, 4,083,242 cases. You know, it's absolutely substantial amount of cases of COVID-19. I just want to say thank you for all my loyal listeners on Proclamation News and Gatherings. Part of the Aristocracy Social League, I've joined a new program with my family on Up Live TV. I just want to thank my family, Nancy, my manager. It's going to be phenomenal. YouTube channel's going to be growing. All my supporters of Castbox and Up Live TV, thank you ever so much. I'm so overwhelmed. I'll be working hand in hand, day in, day out, methodically, madness. Absolutely, but it's good to abbreviate what's going on in the Dominion. Absolutely. I want to say God bless, take care, one love on YouTube.